Let me give you a bit of background about my wife and me. I'm Kyle, 45, and my wife Melissa is 44. We've been married for 23 years, and we have a daughter named Alexis, who's currently in her last semester of college. Alexis has always been a bright spot in our lives, and she's pursuing a degree in education, aiming to become a math teacher. I grew up in a small town in Montana, working hard on our family ranch, but still finding time for sports, rodeos, and hanging out with friends. After high school, I went to college, majoring in agriculture with the hope of becoming a high school agricultural teacher. Since my parents didn't have much, I worked part-time jobs to help support our family. During my last semester, my parents decided to retire and sold the ranch, moving to a modest house in town. Unfortunately, they were both killed in a car accident on their way home from my graduation. Being their only child, I inherited the money from the ranch sale, which turned out to be around $400,000, a shock, since they never mentioned the amount to me. The months following their death were some of the hardest of my life. I was grieving deeply, especially given how sudden it all was. But I managed to push through the pain, and by August, I landed a job teaching agricultural science at a high school just outside Billings. I used part of my inheritance to buy a quaint 25-acre ranch on the outskirts of town. I built a modern log cabin, a barn, and a horse training ring. I also planned to invest in some cattle. I wasn't actively looking for a wife, but I wasn't opposed to the idea either. I wanted someone to share my life with and maybe start a family. About a month into the school year, I met Melissa through a setup arranged by my mentor teacher. At first, I was hesitant, but figured it was worth a try. When Melissa opened the door, I was taken aback by her beauty. Our first date, dinner and drinks, went well, and as we talked on her balcony that night, I found myself wondering why such an incredible woman was still single. Melissa echoed my thoughts, complimenting me and saying she was also attracted to me. Blushing, I admitted that I hadn't felt like this about anyone before, that there was something really special about her. "Thank you, Kyle, I feel the same way," she said, smiling. Most of the men I've dated were either clueless or just not right. I haven't met anyone I wanted to seriously commit to until tonight. We shared a gentle kiss, not overly aggressive, just a soft, tender one. It lingered for a few minutes before I spoke. "Melissa, I'd love to see you again. We don't have to rush into anything, but I'd like to see where this could go. I want to really get to know you before we take any big steps. You're one of the sweetest men I've ever met," she said. "Most guys would have already tried to make a move by now." I laughed. I'd be lying if I said the thought didn't cross my mind. "You're absolutely stunning. But I respect you too much for that. I'm looking for something real, not just a fling." She leaned in for another kiss. "Me too, Kyle. You're one of a kind, and I want to know you better." Melissa didn't come from much. She couldn't afford college, so she went through vocational training and became a secretary. She'd been working for a small business in Billings for a few years. Over the next several months, we got closer and fell in love. About 4 weeks after our first date, we had our first intimate moment. It was passionate, happening in the front seat of my truck after a movie. We barely made it back to the truck before our desires took over, fogging up the windows and making the truck rock as we shared that euphoria together. Melissa's passion was undeniable, and we ended up back at my place, spending the night wrapped up in each other's arms. That night deepened our bond, solidifying our love. By March, Melissa moved in with me, and on June 1st, we got married. About a year later, Alexis was born, and for the next 23 years, we lived a happy family life. We weren't rich, but we were content. Our intimate life remained vibrant, Melissa's passion never faded, and neither did mine. Lately, though, over the last 5 or 6 months, we'd slowed down a bit, but I still felt the spark, or did I? Fast forward to today, about half a year ago, Melissa started a new job as the executive assistant to the CEO of BRB Enterprises, a company specializing in high-end electronics for the government. Her boss, Allan Turner, was 58, balding, and overweight. When I first heard about him, I had some jealousy, but after meeting him, I felt like I had nothing to worry about. Melissa would often tell me how much she appreciated our time together, which helped ease my concerns. However, my uneasiness returned when she started going on business trips with Allan, trips that would last 2 or 3 days. I asked her about them, but she brushed it off, saying they were strictly business, that she had her own room, and everything was professional. Although I was still a bit uneasy, Melissa gave me no reason to doubt her, so I let it go. That brings us to this past Friday. I had just come home from school and headed to the barn. I'd been working there for about an hour when Melissa came back from yet another 3-day business trip. As she stepped out of the car and started toward the house, I called out, telling her I missed her and offering to grill some steaks for dinner. She glanced over at me and nodded, but didn't say much before heading inside. Inside, I grabbed a beer and asked her if she wanted a glass of wine. "That sounds lovely," she replied, still avoiding eye contact and staring at the floor. Sensing something was off, I brought her the glass of wine and set the bottle down next to her. Finally, she looked up at me, and I could see she was troubled. After exchanging a brief kiss and a hug, I immediately noticed something was wrong. Melissa was visibly distressed. I asked her what was going on, my voice laced with concern, but she didn't respond right away. Instead, she drained her wine glass in one gulp and hastily poured herself another, her hands shaking slightly. It was clear that whatever she was about to say had been tearing her apart inside. "Melissa," I said softly, "you can tell me anything. Whatever it is, it can't be that bad. We'll get through it together." Her eyes locked onto mine, filled with an intensity one hadn't seen before. "Kyle," she began, her voice trembling, "what I'm about to tell you is going to change everything. But I need you to listen. Please, don't interrupt me." I nodded, feeling my chest tighten. I wasn't prepared for what came next. "I need you to understand that I love you, Kyle," she continued, her words feeling like they were building to something devastating. "This isn't because you failed as a husband or a father. You're an incredible man, the best I've ever known. But I've made a decision. I'm filing for divorce. I'm leaving tonight." Her words struck me like a hammer to the gut. I stood there, frozen in shock. I barely managed to breathe, my mind racing, trying to catch up with what I'd just heard. Melissa paused for a moment, letting the weight of her words settle. "Your suspicions about Allan were right," she admitted, her eyes welling up with tears. "We've been having an affair for the last 5 months. He's in love with me, and I plan to marry him after the divorce is finalized." I clenched my fists at my sides, my blood boiling under the surface, though I remained outwardly calm. "Go on," I said, my voice colder than I expected. "We'll divide everything equally," she continued, her tone steadying. "You can keep the house, the ranch, everything. I'll only take my clothes and personal items. I just need to move on." I stared at her, the anger slowly overtaking the shock. "Melissa," I said, trying to control the seething fury that was bubbling up inside me, "do you love Allan?" She hesitated for a second before answering, "I respect him. I find him intriguing. Maybe I'll come to love him in time." I shook my head, disbelief etched across my face. "Does he fulfill you more than I do? Is that what this is about? Was I not enough for you?" "No, Kyle," she said quickly. "He doesn't even come close. You've always been amazing. I've always been satisfied with you." "Then why, Melissa?" I asked, my voice cracking as I struggled to understand. "Why destroy our family after 23 years? Why betray me like this?" Tears streamed down her face as she looked away. "He gives me things, Kyle. Expensive gifts, promises of luxury. He believes I deserve to live a life of ease, fancy cars, designer clothes, traveling the world. He wants to give me all that." I laughed bitterly, feeling a deep pit form in my stomach. "So this is about money? You're trading up for a rich guy?" "Melissa, there's a word for that, and it starts with an S. She winced, her face crumbling as she began to cry harder. "I'm not a gold digger, Kyle. I never meant to hurt you, but I can't pass up this opportunity. I'm so sorry." I felt like my entire world was collapsing around me. "I've given you everything I could, Melissa," I said, my voice hoarse. "I've worked hard every day to provide for us, to make you happy. And now, after all these years, you're throwing it away for some guy with a fat wallet?" I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me. "I'm going to the barn. You can pack your things and leave tonight. But understand this, once you walk out that door, you're not coming back. I won't take you back." Melissa looked devastated, but I couldn't bring myself to care anymore. She had made her choice. I walked out to the barn, and for the first time in years, I cried. The tears came fast and hard, falling like rain as I sat down on a bale of hay. My father always told me that men shouldn't cry, but here I was, broken. A few minutes later, Melissa came out to the barn, her face pale and swollen from crying. She saw me and gasped. Kyle. I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you like this. I stood up, my tears still fresh on my face. You've wrecked our marriage, Melissa. You've torn our family apart for money. And now you say you still love me, but I don't think you even know what love means anymore. She wiped her eyes and sighed. Allan and I are flying to Italy tomorrow morning. I'll be gone for a few days. When I get back, I'll file for the divorce. I glared at her, my heart shattering all over again. You're in a rush to throw away everything we've built, aren't you? Have you even thought about how Alexis will react? I'll call her tonight, Melissa said, avoiding my gaze. Allan promised to buy her a new car, pay off her college loans. She'll be fine. Alexis doesn't need his money, I snapped. And she sure as hell won't sell out for a car. Melissa gave me a strange look but stayed silent. She turned to leave, but before she walked out, I said, once you walk out that door, it's over. Don't come back crying to me when this blows up in your face. She hesitated for a moment, and for a second, I thought she might change her mind. But then she whispered, I love you, Kyle. I'll miss you. I love you too, Melissa, I said softly, my voice hollow. And with that, she was gone. Later that night, Alexis called me. Dad, what the hell is going on? Mom just called. Has she lost her mind? She's hooked up with a rich guy, thinks his money is going to make her happy, I replied bitterly. Apparently, I wasn't enough for her. That's garbage, Dad. She's blinded by his money, but I'm not buying it. She even tried to bribe me with a new car and pay off my loans. I told her where she could stick that car. I chuckled through the pain, grateful that my daughter could see through Melissa's betrayal. Thanks, sweetheart. I'm glad you're on my side. We talked for a while, and she lifted my spirits. But later, after a few beers, I fell asleep on the couch, my mind still haunted by what had happened. That night, my dreams were plagued by disturbing images. In one, I saw Melissa with Allan in a dressing room at a mall, doing something that made me sick to my core. It was a nightmare I couldn't shake. The next morning, my old college roommate, Brian, called me. We'd kept in touch over the years, and he had been my best man at the wedding. He worked for the FBI now, in the fraud division. It had been a couple of months since we last spoke, and his voice on the other end of the line was a welcome distraction. Hey, Kyle, he said, how's it going? I admitted to Gregory that things weren't going too well. Melissa had left me the day before, seeking a divorce. That's why I reached out to him. To my surprise, Gregory seemed ready for this conversation and told me he had been meaning to talk to me too, offering to come over quickly. I asked him how he knew about Melissa leaving, but he said he didn't. Instead, he had some information he believed I'd want to hear. We agreed to meet soon, and I couldn't help but wonder what Gregory knew. It all felt strange, and though thoughts of revenge hadn't surfaced before, there was a nagging feeling that something serious was about to unfold. Gregory arrived about 30 minutes later, and we sat down on the back deck with cups of coffee. It was a calm, beautiful morning, a sharp contrast to the turmoil in my heart. He commented on the peaceful surroundings before expressing his condolences about my marriage. Though I shared everything with him, he didn't seem surprised. Kyle, it seems like you already knew about Melissa and Allan, I remarked, suspicious. Gregory took a deep breath and leaned in. What I'm about to tell you stays between us, he warned. I shouldn't even be telling you this, but as your friend, I feel it's my duty. We never had this conversation, all right? Of course, Gregory. But this sounds more serious than just a marital issue, I replied, my curiosity piqued. It is, Kyle. It's official business on my part. I'm involved in an operation investigating Allan Turner. We suspect he's been defrauding the government with shady contracts, potentially siphoning off millions. If we prove it, he's in deep trouble. We've been gathering evidence for months. Wow, I muttered, the pieces starting to fall into place. I never liked that guy, but this is incredible. Gregory nodded, and I could see a hint of satisfaction in his eyes. We're close, Kyle. Just a few more months and we'll have what we need to bring him down. Melissa? She's tangled up in this mess now, whether she realizes it or not. Is she implicated in the fraud? I asked, the knot in my stomach tightening. We don't think so. There's no evidence she knows what Allan's been up to. But when it all falls apart, she's in for a rude awakening, Gregory replied. She thinks she's marrying a rich man and living in luxury, but her dream is about to collapse. Gregory then reached into his briefcase and pulled out a large envelope. Tossing it on the table, he said, "Here's enough proof of their affair to use in your divorce, if you want it. And remember, you didn't get this from me." I opened the envelope and inside were 8 by 10 photos, emails, and videos, proof of Melissa's affair with Allan, dates and timestamps included. It was hard to look at, but strangely, I felt a sense of calm. This wasn't just my imagination. It was real, and there it was, right in front of me. As I scanned the images, I noticed something. Melissa didn't seem to enjoy herself in any of the photos. There was a lot of faking, and I knew her well enough to spot the difference. Whatever she had with Allan, it wasn't fulfilling her the way she claimed it would. Gregory stood up to leave, mentioning he'd be around for a few days since the operation was close to wrapping up. D-Day for Turner is coming soon, he said, and I could hear the weight in his voice. Hey Gregory, let's grab dinner tomorrow night. It's on me for all you've done, I offered, trying to lighten the mood. Sounds good, Kyle. My sister Tiffany's coming into town tomorrow. Would you mind if she joined us? Not at all, I smiled. I haven't seen her since she was a kid with braces. Well, she's 36 now, and stunning, if I do say so myself, Gregory chuckled. Ironically, she's just finalized her own divorce. Seems she came home early from a business trip and caught her husband in bed with his secretary. Wow. Sounds like we'll have a lot to talk about, I said, still processing all the chaos in my life. She's a partner at a big law firm now, Gregory added. Might be able to help you find a good divorce attorney. I'll definitely ask her, I replied. The next evening, I met Gregory and Tiffany at a local Mexican restaurant. And Gregory was right, Tiffany had grown into a striking woman. She greeted me with a warm hug and a kiss on the cheek, and we laughed as we reminisced about the last time we saw each other. You've really changed since the braces and pigtails days, I teased. She giggled. I guess I grew up. And into one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen, I added sincerely. We talked about everything over dinner, and I filled Tiffany in on my situation. She listened intently, and I could tell she had already been briefed by Gregory. She was sharp, confident, and ready to take action. You need to go on the offensive, she said, her tone decisive. I know an excellent lawyer who specializes in infidelity divorces. She took my ex-husband to the cleaners. After dinner, Tiffany suggested we go dancing. The night was still young, and I felt a strange sense of freedom. We spent the next 2 hours dancing and drinking, enjoying each other's company. To say we hit it off would be an understatement. Tiffany was vibrant, thoughtful, and kind, and being around her helped me see that there was still light after the storm. We returned to the restaurant to get her car, and she asked if I'd follow her back to her hotel to give me the divorce lawyer's card. When we got to her room, she handed me the card, making sure I would call her friend the next day. Thank you, Tiffany, I said sincerely. I don't know how I could ever repay you for everything. She smiled and suddenly wrapped her arms around me, kissing me passionately. I responded, caught up in the moment, and we moved to the bed, kissing even more deeply. For a few minutes, the world outside disappeared. When we finally paused, I looked into her eyes. Tiffany, I've wanted to kiss you since the moment I saw you again, I admitted. She smiled softly, brushing a hand through my hair. And I've wanted you to. You're one of the most handsome men I've ever met. We continued kissing, our hands beginning to explore one another, but I pulled back, taking a breath. We should slow down. I don't want to rush into something and hurt either of us, especially with everything going on. She smiled, her eyes warm and reassuring. Kyle, I know what I want. I'm a grown woman, and I can make my own decisions. And right now, I want to be here with you. Tiffany shared how, after discovering her husband's affair, she initially blamed herself, wondering if she had failed as a wife. But over time, she realized it wasn't her fault. She recognized her own worth, her youth, her attractiveness, and her confidence. And Kyle, she said softly, you shouldn't blame yourself for what Melissa did. You didn't cause this. I know it's hard not to think that way, but it's not your fault. As we lay there in each other's arms, I thought about how much had changed. I had done my best as a father, a husband, and a partner, and I had given everything I could. We kissed a few more times but mostly just enjoyed the quiet comfort of being close, lying together on the bed. There was something peaceful about it, like we were both finding some relief in each other's presence. The next morning, we woke up still tangled up together. I invited Tiffany to lunch at my place, and we decided to go horseback riding afterward. She loved the idea, and we had a great time out on the ranch. Later, we ended up back on the couch, where things got a little heated again, but this time it didn't go further than a heavy make-out session. I guess we were both enjoying taking things slow, letting it all unfold naturally. We talked about seeing each other more and agreed to keep things going and see where they'd lead. By Monday, I was ready to move forward, so I met with Bella, the attorney Tiffany had recommended. I told her everything, laid out the whole story, and gave her all the evidence I had. Bella, with her 30 years of experience, wasn't surprised by much, but I could tell she was disgusted with how Melissa had handled everything. It was reassuring to know someone was on my side. Bella suggested filing for divorce on grounds of infidelity and abandonment, making sure I kept the house, the ranch, and most of the assets. We had about $10,000 in savings, which she said we'd split, but I'd keep what was in our checking account. Since Melissa's car payments and credit card were already in her name, they would stay her responsibility, but I covered her insurance, which Bella advised I cancel as soon as possible. She covered all the bases, even mentioning that we'd only use the explicit photos and videos if necessary. We also talked about timing. Melissa was supposed to come back from Rome on Thursday morning, and Bella planned to serve her the divorce papers then. She might not like the infidelity part, Bella noted, but I think she'll agree to everything else. She seems eager for a quick divorce so she can marry Turner. I nodded, agreeing. Yeah, I think she just wants to get it over with, especially now that she's got her eyes set on a wealthy life. Thursday morning rolled around, and at about 10:30 a.m., my phone rang. It was Melissa, and she sounded upset. Kyle, why did I just get served with divorce papers? We agreed you'd file. I took a deep breath. Melissa, I didn't agree to anything. I'm just moving things along since this is what you wanted. She seemed thrown by that, especially when she brought up the mention of infidelity and abandonment. She pushed for irreconcilable differences instead. We didn't agree to this, she insisted, trying to bargain. I stayed calm. I didn't agree to anything, Melissa. I'm just making sure we meet your wishes. I let her know I'd be willing to change the wording, but she needed to acknowledge what had really happened. After a brief conversation with Bella, she updated the papers, and true to her prediction, Melissa signed them without much fuss. By Friday afternoon, everything was back in Bella's office. I swung by after work, signed the papers myself, and was told the divorce would be finalized in 60 days. It felt like a heavy chapter was finally closing. That night, I called Tiffany, and we arranged to meet for dinner near her new office. We had a great time, talking for a couple of hours, just letting everything out. We decided to save any intimate plans for Saturday and just enjoy a relaxed evening together. Later that night, Melissa called again, this time sounding different. She asked how I was doing and admitted that she no longer felt comfortable using terms of endearment with me. I stayed firm but calm. I'll be fine, Melissa. You hurt me, deeply. But I'll survive. You got what you wanted, and I'm not part of that anymore. She apologized, saying she never meant to cause me so much pain. She told me she still loved me, but I brushed it off. It doesn't matter anymore, Melissa. You've made your choices. I then informed her that I'd be canceling her car and health insurance next Friday, giving her time to arrange new coverage. She thanked me, saying Allan would take care of it. I let her know I wasn't worried. Before the call ended, she asked if I thought she was a terrible person. I could hear the emotion in her voice as she told me she did what she had to do. I didn't feel much at that moment. I simply wished her well and hung up. It was time for me to focus on my own life. Saturday night rolled around, and Tiffany showed up at my house at 6. Let me tell you, she looked stunning. She was tall, about 5 feet 9 inches, with long blonde hair, legs that wouldn't quit, and the kind of curves that turn heads. She had on a red dress that fit her perfectly, showing just the right amount of cleavage. As soon as I saw her, my excitement was hard to hide. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't thrilled. We had dinner out on the deck, enjoying the view of the ranch as the sun set. We ate, drank wine, flirted, and just enjoyed each other's company for a couple of hours. At some point, she looked at me and said with a playful smile, "If you don't take me to bed soon, I'm going to explode, cowboy." I couldn't help but laugh as I scooped her up in my arms and carried her to the bedroom. The rest of the night was pure bliss, a perfect combination of passion and connection. Over the next few weeks, Tiffany and I spent a lot of time together. We were falling for each other, no doubt about it. I asked her to move in, but she wanted to wait until my divorce was finalized. That didn't stop her from spending plenty of nights at my place, though. About 5 days before the divorce became official, Gregory called me. He sounded excited and let me know that they were about to take down Turner. Everything he owned was about to be seized, his assets, his business, everything. The operation had amassed enough evidence to bring him down. "What about Melissa?" I asked. "She'll be questioned, but it looks like she's in the clear. Still, she's going to lose her financial support. It's going to be rough for her." "That's her problem now," I said, feeling oddly indifferent. Gregory chuckled. "By the way, my sister is thrilled with your relationship. After everything she's been through, she's finally happy again. She's amazing, Gregory. I think I'm falling for her. She loves you too, Kyle. Who knows, maybe someday I'll be calling you my brother-in-law." "I'd like that," I said, smiling. That Friday, my divorce was finalized. I had taken a week off from work, and Tiffany and I were busy moving her things into my place. On my way home from running errands, my phone rang again. It was Melissa. She wanted to meet, and I agreed to lunch. Tiffany knew about it and trusted me to handle the situation. When I saw Melissa at the restaurant, I almost didn't recognize her. She had gained some weight and looked worn out, like the stress had gotten the better of her. I could see people staring as she walked in. Her name had been all over the news because of the Turner scandal. We found a quiet spot outside to talk. We started with small talk, but soon she broke down in tears. "Kyle, leaving you was the biggest mistake of my life," she said through sobs. "I'm not just saying this because Allan got arrested. I realized it long before that. A few weeks after I moved in with him, I knew I'd made a huge mistake. The excitement, the money, it all fades so quickly. I was miserable, Kyle," Melissa admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "I felt sick every time I had to be close to him. I didn't expect this at all. I thought money was everything when I left you." She paused, her eyes filling with guilt. "I've been overwhelmed by what I did, to you and to Alexis. She barely speaks to me anymore, and I don't blame her. You didn't deserve any of this, Kyle. You were a good husband, a good provider. I had everything I needed, but I just didn't see it." I nodded, appreciating her honesty. "Thank you, Melissa. I appreciate you saying that, but the truth is, you made your choices because something wasn't right for you." "No, Kyle," she said quickly, her voice cracking. "I was happy with you. I let him manipulate me. Allan seduced me, convinced me to leave you for him and his money. But the night before his arrest, he forced himself on me. He's a disgusting, perverted old man, and I hope he rots in jail." As much as I wanted to laugh at the irony, I held it in. "Where's this going, Melissa? What do you want from me?" Tears streamed down her face as she pleaded, "Please, Kyle, take me back. I love you. I miss you so much. I miss the ranch, the horses, everything we shared. I'll do anything to make it right." I looked at her calmly. "Do you really miss me, or is this because you don't have money, a home, or a job?" I asked softly. She hesitated before whispering, "I'm broke, Kyle. I have nowhere to go. But I miss you, I really do. I want things to be like they used to be." I took a deep breath. "Melissa, when you left, I made it clear there was no turning back. It was final. There's no going back now." She wiped her eyes, her desperation clear. "I know, but I'm at the end of my rope. You're my last hope, Kyle." "I'm sorry, Melissa," I said gently, "but I've moved on. I've found love with someone else. We'll probably get married eventually, but we're taking it slow this time. We've both had rough experiences in the past." She looked completely devastated, tears spilling down her cheeks as the reality of the situation hit her. It was like she hadn't considered the possibility that I might have moved on. I felt a pang of sympathy for her. "Melissa," I said, "I once thought about revenge, about getting back at you. But that's not where I'm at now. I don't want to hurt you. If there's anything I can do to help, I will. She looked up at me, her expression softening. I was foolish to think you'd take me back, she said quietly. I don't blame you. I wouldn't take me back either. After a long pause, she added, if you could just lend me $5,000 until I find a job and get my own place. I'm staying with a friend, but I need my own space. How much do you need? I asked, knowing what was coming. Just $5,000, she repeated. I'll pay you back once I get on my feet. The waiter arrived with our food, but my appetite was gone. I watched as Melissa started eating, her eyes downcast. I pulled out my checkbook, wrote her a check, and folded it before handing it to her. This should help you start over. You're a skilled secretary, you'll find a job. If not, let me know, and I'll see what I can do to help. She nodded, taking the check with a look of surprise. Thank you, Kyle, she whispered. I stood up to leave, feeling a strange sense of closure. You know, I always dreamed of growing old with you, holding hands as Alexis said her wedding vows, watching our grandkids take their first horseback ride, and being buried beside you on the ranch. But I guess fate had other plans. With that, I left the restaurant, placing a $100 bill on the table to cover the check and the tip. As I walked away, I glanced back one last time and saw her open the check, her expression shifting from disbelief to something else as she realized I had left her more than she'd expected. She looked up, but I was already gone, heading toward my car with a strange sense of peace. After that, life moved on. Tiffany moved in a few weeks later. In the following spring, we got married in Vegas at Red Rock Canyon Resort. It was a small, intimate affair, just close friends and family. Gregory was my best man, and Alexis stood proudly as maid of honor. They'd become close friends, which meant the world to me. The reception was held in our honeymoon suite, and it turned into a celebration I'll never forget. I even struck it lucky that night, winning over $200,000 on a progressive slot machine. It was as if life was throwing me a nod, saying, "You're on the right path now." Melissa wasn't part of the festivities, but word got back to her through the local paper. Eventually, she found a job and a place to live. She never did pay back the loan, but I didn't expect her to. From what I heard, she's dating a high school English teacher now. I hope she finds some happiness there. As for Allan, well, justice caught up with him. He was convicted of federal crimes, and all his assets were seized to repay the government. He's going to spend a long time behind bars, which seems fitting for a man like him. Maybe he'll find some company more suited to his tastes there. Meanwhile, Tiffany and I settled into a life that felt right, peaceful, full of love, and with no looking back. Things didn't turn out the way I had imagined, but in the end, I couldn't have asked for a better outcome.